Brian Betts, a gay man, was the beloved principal of Shaw Middle School in Washington, D.C. He was murdered in his home in Silver Spring, Maryland by Rene Sandler in April of 2010. Today, we met with officials from the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. to urge that his murder be investigated as a hate crime under the Matthew Shepard hate crime law. Although Rene Sandler pled guilty to the murder of Mr. Betts and has been sentenced recently for that crime in Montgomery County, Maryland, we believe that a federal investigation should be opened to determine whether or not this case should be prosecuted as a hate crime. Rene Sandler called a male-to-male sex chat line on April 14, 2010, allegedly with the intent to set up a robbery. On the chat line, he exchanged messages with Brian Betts. He arranged to meet with Mr. Betts at Brian's home in Silver Spring, Maryland. And Mr. Betts traveled from Washington, Mr. Sandler traveled from Washington, D.C. to Maryland with the intent to commit a crime against Mr. Betts. Sandler brought a gun to Mr. Betts' home, went upstairs, and during the course of robbing Mr. Betts, he shot Mr. Betts, thereby murdering him. Sandler has been sentenced to life with all but 40 years suspended. That means he'll be eligible for parole in 20 years. The Matthew Shepard hate crime law was signed by the President in October of 2009. Its purpose was to protect persons who are gay or who are perceived to be gay and allow federal prosecution of those who target them for crimes of violence because of their sexual or perceived sexual orientation. It is clear to us that a person who participates in a male-to-male sex chat line would be perceived to be gay or may be thought to be a especially vulnerable target for the criminal. We presented this argument and others in our meeting with Justice Department officials today. We appreciate their having met with us, and we are looking forward to the results of their review of this very important case.
Was Brian Betts murdered because he was gay and because these men hated gays? Or was he murdered because it was a crime of opportunity and he was vulnerable? And does that make a difference under the statute?
I think it makes a difference as to whether he was perceived to be gay and if he was targeted. And that was the reason that he was targeted. I think that male-on-male sex chat lines are obviously a place where persons who are gay or perceived to be gay are chatting with each other. And so if he's targeted because he's on that line, then we say that would fall, we believe, under the Matthew Shepard hate crime law. It's our concern that often persons who are using these sex chat lines, that is gay men who are using them, are especially vulnerable. They are thought to be sometimes wealthy or affluent. That in addition, they might be reluctant to report crimes because they would be embarrassed to report them. And therefore, they are an attractive target for criminals who wish to target them.
What about the prosecutors in Montgomery County? The county prosecutor out there has said many times before, since your last statement outside the Rockville courthouse, saying if this was a hate crime, we would have prosecuted. We couldn't. We didn't have the evidence. What evidence do you have, or do you see differently that they don't see?
Well, we are asking for a prosecution under the federal Matthew Shepard hate crime law. Apparently, the state's attorney didn't see it under the state
How does it differ? Tell us.
hate crime law, but whether or not he should have, could have prosecuted under the state law, he didn't do it. We feel that an important interest is left unvindicated. There has not been full justice for Brian Betts and for his family and for persons who are gay. And parents of Brian Betts, sister of Brian Betts, they want there to be protection for gay people. They don't want them to be targets of violence.
What was the reaction from the Justice Department attorneys?
And I want to add that even if he went there to rob him, Saunders went to rob Mr. Betts, whom he only met through the sex chat line, didn't know in any other way. targeting him for a crime of violence.
Talk to us about the evidence that makes it a federal hate crime.
Well, we presented all of that in our more than hour-long meeting in the Civil Rights Division, the criminal section. And, of course, while we are not expecting an answer today, we do appreciate the fact that they met and that it'll be considered, and then they'll decide whether or not it's appropriate to open an investigation.
So they didn't offer any kind of, did you get any sense from them about whether they were receptive to this idea, or was there no?
My sense was that they listened, and they're going to have to make a decision at some point, and they'll make it when they think it's appropriate to do so. This is the first step for us, and as far as we know, to date, there have not yet been any prosecutions. We don't know if there have been any investigations, but no prosecutions yet under the Matthew Shepard hate crime law.
Did they give you a timeline of like, we'll go back to you in this amount of time, or?
No, but we will be able to get an answer at some point. And we're hoping that they will seriously consider it and in a timely fashion.